Hello and welcome to episode 145 of the Imperial Truth podcast. I'm Greg. Joining me is Mr. Howard. Hello, Howard.
Hello, Greg. How are you doing? You all right?
Yeah, not too bad. Yourself?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Good. Enjoying, trying to enjoy the summer weather.
Indeed. When we get it in between the other bits and pieces. But hey, it's July in England. We're used to this new kind of weather system. We'll probably get a wonderful September or something, which will be fine with me. Before we go anywhere, we've got Geek Shield for your insurance needs. Go and check them out on Facebook. If you have life insurance and you're not sure if it's covering you properly, or you just haven't looked at it in ages, then Pete can overlook it and make sure it's working for you. Or if you haven't got any at all, you can get some from him. And also Element Games. I've been spending too much. It's not cool, bro.
It's easily done, though, isn't it? It's easily done. These fun toys come out, and there's been some big moments. I'm a bit fearful for what's coming.
Yes, I have. I've built up a fair. So they sponsor the show. They pay a small amount every month. It is a small amount, but I let that build up because of what's coming. So I've got a nice little chunk sat in there, which will get me. It will get me one box. It won't get me two. I wouldn't have thought. But more I spend on that, more I put in there with my crystals, the more I get. So that's how I'm looking at saving money. But with the restrictions lifting in the UK as of the 19th, I had a 40k event to go to, a little one-day 40k event at the end of July to go to, and I was like, right, I should make a list of like what I'm going to take, because I'm not a competitive 40k player, but you don't want to take absolute rubbish to an event where there's going to be good lists. So
you want a balanced list.
Yeah, I just take some stuff I like, and play it. Just make sure it won't get blown off the table in one go. And then I was like, okay, so I need to paint that. Okay, and then have a look and be like, oh no, which means I need to buy that unit. And I built that one with different guns, so I need to now go and buy another one of them. And so, yeah, I've done a couple of emergency Games Workshop element orders for Games Workshop bits, and then changed the list already, so I don't need one of them now. But it'll add to the pile.
Not for the next hour or two, anyway. And then maybe it'll change.
Exactly. But yeah, and then I've got Company of Legends in the start of September, so I've got to paint for end of July for this event, and then I'm concentrating on getting my demons done for Company of Legends, which I've got two Bellicors sat here, which I was going to replace my my Greater Demon, Ruinstorm Demon, with one of those, but that depends on whether I can get everything else painted first and then work on them. It's not a huge.
You know what's going to happen as well. You're going to run out of that particular wash, or you're going to run out of that basing texture paint or something like that just when you're in mid-flow, aren't you?
Well, that's the advantage with Element, isn't it? It's next day if you order it quick enough. So
and that just keeps it going, doesn't it?
You're never out for too long. I mean, I have got, I work. There's a GW near where I work, and there's an independent one of our other branches, so I can always pop in and grab bits and pieces, provided they've got it, of course. But yeah, making sure I've got enough contrast Blood Angels Red is a key for my demon army, because there's a lot of red, there's a lot of skin.
And that's a different conversation when you're branching out beyond the GW range as well.
Yeah, absolutely. This is why I stuck for GW for so long, because before there was this proliferation of good internet shops to get stuff from. I was like, I need to be able to know I can go into Tunbridge Wells when I'm working and pick up some paint. And I just couldn't do that with any other range. So mind you, the contrasts are fantastic. So I'll do that anyway. But now getting Vallejo is just as easy. Don't have to leave the house; it just turns up the next day.
Well, yeah, quite, and all of them actually. It's such a wide range now. There's a few other paint ranges I'm starting to experiment. The Pro Acryl range, I'm going to start playing some with those. It's got some P3s, and they've started to branch out the ranges beyond the usual.
I almost think that's a bit dangerous. I'm
Oh, it
like,
is. Oh, without
what,
question, it is. I wouldn't
what,
recommend it at all.
what if I go and buy these paints and then really like them, and then all of a sudden I'm looking at this other paint? I've got loads of paints in my box. I know, at the end of the day, I don't paint to a level where I feel the need that I have to have the best one for me or whatever. If you listen to someone like Vince Ventrilla on his videos, or Caleb or whatever, and they'll have, people say, "What's the best paint range?" And it's like banana. Like it's an irrelevant question, really.
It will,
Um,
there's a consistent response to that, which is every range has specific paints that are better than others,
well, not
and
even better.
even with it, well, better as in,
Yeah,
yeah, good point. Define better. Define what your criteria for
yeah.
good
There
is,
are
but
there are
yeah,
there are paints in every range that you will get on with better than others,
that's a more
and will
specific way of putting
and
it.
will
Yeah,
do things that other paints won't do. Um, so people swear by scale 75, and then someone will say actually they don't do this that well, and say Caleb swears by the air range for when he's airbrushing from GW. He has a lot of good uses with that, but obviously he's not afraid to go and then pick up some paint spray inks and then some other bits and pieces and Vallejo and wherever he needs to go to get what paint he needs for that job.
yeah.
Um, some dedication to painting, though, I think. And I do think and it's fine if you are a painter and you love it and your whole thing is to get the effects that you want, then it's brilliant and it's so useful. I do think there are some people who just paint who get caught up in too many different paints, and I'm like, you can do a lot with just one line, one range.
Oh, definitely, definitely, you could. Yeah, without question. But it's a hobby in itself. That's
Yeah.
one of the many beauties. I do find myself going to Element quite a bit just to kind of almost browse what's out there, particularly when you start getting into some of the more esoteric ranges of paints
Oh,
that you get.
don't. Yeah.
Some of them are like the MIG stuff and some of the green stuff world increasingly as well. Some of these things that you're like, wow, there's some products out there, and it's almost like I'm sort of some sort of weird compulsive hoarder of some kind.
Well,
I
that's
know
the
it's a
other issue, isn't it?
surprise, isn't it?
Yeah, we're just waiting for our garage conversion to be finished, which needs some wood of a size that's basically not being made at the moment because they're trying to keep up with just the regular orders. So our next door neighbour who's doing it can't finish off our garage. When he can, I can rearrange this room, and then the missus is going to have a desk in here, and I'm going to move my stuff around, and then I'm going to get some paint racks for the walls. Might need to move some.
I can
I've got
highly recommend that. I've got a stack of the paint racks on the wall at the moment, and I find that has been fantastic. You'll just glance over and be like, "Yep, I want this one, this one, this one
yeah. My
all
problem
day."
is I can't fully, like, we need to start getting stuff out before I know exactly how much room I've got.
Mm.
And I've got a signed Arsenal shirt here from the 1971 Cup final. It's not an actual shirt, it's a replica, but Charlie George signed it, and that's sat there. And I'm like, well, that might have to move because that might now have to be paints. And was like, oh, you can just do it there. And I'm like, well, I don't know if I'm going to buy a new table, and I don't know if we can get one to fit in that gap exactly how I want it. So, like, I'm a bit like in the air at the moment
Mm.
with my painting area. Not that I've got much painting done some building, but there's it's just stuff going on all the moment. Like Mrs. Housewarmings. Now we can go around people's houses like housewarmings, and then meeting up to watch football with some of her friends, and going out and socialising.
I think there's going to be
It's
a
hard
while of
work.
this. I think there's going to be a
Yeah.
while where, as the social calendars suddenly almost explode in one go, and then it's going to presumably lock into a certain pattern for a while. But yeah, for a while, I think there's going to be an interruption to the regular service of hobby.
Yeah.
Well, at least you've got
Yeah.
some events
Absolutely.
locked in. I've got Games Expo coming up at the end. I'm going to head up to that. That
You
should be
are
quite
going
good
up
fun.
to that. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's
I definitely
yeah.
want to get up to that. It's looking quite good. There was an announcement today that that's going ahead. So I think that'd be quite good fun, albeit
Hmm.
it might be a slightly strange atmosphere, but I think it would
Oh yeah.
be
What
good to
dates was
go.
that again?
It is the weekend of the 31st of July.
Yeah. That's the weekend of my event, and on the Sunday I'm doing something as well. Uh, yes, can't even remember what's going on. Need to actually look at the calendar. But there's little bits and pieces all lined up. And the weekend before, Yes, ended up playing Adeptus Titanicus at our friend Willard's house up in London.
Excellent.
5 of us up there. I went out for one day. They played a big game on the second day, and broke some toys out and played some Titanicus with Matt Woodsmith, my co-host from Full Stride, and then a couple of other guys. Um, uh, and yeah, I tell you what, that's a game when you don't play it in a while that you remember. Like you can get rusty,
Yeah,
really rusty.
particularly if I would imagine if you're up against people who aren't, who are
Yeah.
on
So
form, that must be
well,
like, ah,
it's one of those things. So like, I only played 2 games. I played against Matt with his Extergimus and Maniple, and he knows what that's the Maniple he really loves playing. He knows roughly what he's doing. Also, you've got 3 Warlords, so like when you do catch something, like you don't have to coordinate your fire too much because a Warlord can handle itself.
mhm.
Um, and I made the mistake, and he punished it. And I was going to play Paul, but I couldn't. And then I played Ben, who's a very good player. And then I was also using rules for Legio. I used Legio Tritonis, which is a black
Oh yeah,
shield.
yeah, yeah.
Fantastic Legio. I just love the way they work. And I was like, let's see if I can do something with them. And it's not like it's weird in that I love the Legio, uh, and one of their traits is to swap a Warlord in for a Reaver,
Mm.
in a mana pool. And I'm like, or whatever. And I'm like, that's cool, but it's like for the rest of their rules, it's almost not what I want to do. So it was really interesting just to try and get to grips with how I play that Legio, and then using their other rules with it. And against Matt, I was um, a bit too eager for. They got a thing where they can put 3 line of sight blocking
Mm.
bits down one turn, and I used them too early. I was like, hold, and I played the second game against Ben, and I was like, right, let's hold off, and I lost. What what pretty much cost me the game was getting excited with one Titan, and he got destroyed very quickly, and that gave Ben was using the mana pool where if you kill something with a Warbringer, the Reavers get to move.
Oh
Um,
right,
but apart from that, I guess I gave 3 Reavers a free move, which is quite big. But
yeah,
played the rest of
that's
the game quite
dangerous.
well. Yeah, but it's just remembering in that game, sometimes there's nothing wrong with not being able to shoot anything in a turn.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's one of those things. It's one of those wargaming things where I often talk at the club. One of the guys at the club who wants to get better, um, he will say things like, "Oh, I couldn't win that game." I was like, "Well, you could never win that game doing what you were doing.
Mm.
Like if you ran down, like you ran at me in this instance, and you ran down here, and I shot you to pieces in that kill box." And he's like, "But I've got a close combat army," and I'm like, "But you have to try something different
Yeah.
because you're
Mm.
never going to win that game that way." He's like,
Mm.
"But I don't do anything otherwise." I'm like, "But you've got more chance."
Yeah,
It's that weird thing where my army's built to do a thing, and you're like, "But you can't do that thing in this instance, so you have to make sure it can do something else."
yeah.
And it might
It
be a
sounds like it was quite
20%
a good
chance of winning.
experience. It sounds like it was quite a good experience doing what you were like you were questioning quite a bit almost about how it would up with your Tritonus then about how you would
Yeah,
play that army. It sounds like
I mean,
quite a
part of it.
useful
So
experience.
I was playing Ben, who's a very good player, knows what he's doing, and he was using a mana pool that's not great and trying to get the most out of it. But he's going to be better than most players doing that anyway. Uh, and then I know I can play, so it was things like he set up a charge, he won priority, so he's going to charge before my knights could charge him. I was like, oh, okay. And then just reading the rules, it's like, oh, those line of sight blockers mean you can't attack through them. So I can actually just drop it in front of my knights, so my knights are covered by the rear of it, and you can't see them. Okay.
Mm.
So you nullify his charge completely, which then makes him think, oh, what am I doing here? And then I'm repositioning to a point where I'm like, well, you can charge there, but I can countercharge you. I can do this, or I can hide around the corner so you can't charge me, and I can counter. And just putting questions back on him, which is something that, for all that, I play Heresy in a. Now it's weird. So it always makes me laugh with Heresy's a narrative game, and I think in a lot of cases for a lot of people, actually, it's not a narrative game. it's a game where you've created an army based on a narrative.
It's an interesting variation on the thing. Yeah, because I agree. A narrative game suggests a very different type of construction somehow.
Yes. So not even a narrative. You've based your army on a theme that you've taken from a novel, a piece of background. And that's not a narrative army in the same way as we are playing a narrative where and again, this is a spectrum, right? There's no all the people on one side and all the other people on the other side. But when you're playing a game and you make the move to win the game rather than the move that the Space Marines would do based on reading the books and stuff, then you're playing the game to a point. So there's a balance to be had somewhere.
Well, similarly, playing a historic scenario where both your forces are maybe they're completely asymmetric. Maybe they're completely, there's quite a lot more to it to be a fully immersive narrative game. I would have said. I think, but it's whatever. But as you said, generally, particularly if you're going to an event or something like that, I would have said, unless it's obviously a fully narrative event. But most of those events tend to be more along the lines of more of the game than they are the narrative.
Yeah, and it's like, I'm going to a narrative event. What are you taking? I'm taking a spear tip, Sons of Horus army as shown in X book, and it's like, okay, cool. But that's not. Is that based on like the background of the event you're going to? I'm one of these people. I rarely write something explicitly for that event based on the narrative of that event. Some people do. But again, I say it's a spectrum. So even if you take an army designed for that, like the way you play it will then move you'll start at point X on the spectrum, and then the way you play it moves you left or right, essentially. Or it could even be three-dimensional. But most people, they play themed games.
Yeah. And themed lists.
Themed lists, absolutely. So it's an interesting one. It's I don't really know where I'm going with this now, but it
doesn't. You don't have to go anywhere. That's not how we work.
No,
we just go. We go where we're going to go. Yeah, particularly in a month where we're a bit lighter. In a calm before a storm, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely. It might be a long calm before the storm. But yeah. So but yeah, with events and stuff like that, and it's cool. It is cool. Some people won't even read the background. Like, as an event organizer, I know that I'll write an event pack, and people will flick at it the first time it comes out, see where it is, where the venue is, what date it is, and then go yes or no, and they'll come. That's cool. It's not a problem. But I've completely lost my thread, so we'll move on. We shall move on. So we talked about not much happening. I will say, first things first. Last episode, we talked about Argel Tal and the cool model that came out, and I kind of poo-pooed the idea of him having the spear on the model. I haven't read Betrayer in a long time. Since it came out, I wouldn't have thought. And I was gently reminded by a couple of people that Argel Tal does have that custodian spear for quite a bit of that novel. So I have downloaded Betrayer onto my phone via Audible. So I can, because I was like, I haven't read that in a long time. Let's go and read that again. So thank you for pointing that out, and apologies, people. I can see some people 3D printing a hand for him to have it now. I kind of don't mind. I still think the model looks great as it is.
For sure. But I mean, that's quite cool, isn't it? You should be able to you could custom up one of those quite nicely.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting based on the rules as well, because it might have been a rules thing where they've tried to put it in there, but then it probably shouldn't work just like a custodian spear does. So it could be funky, but it is what it is, and it's on there, and it's cool, frankly. But people will do what they want to do. They'll put the swords on him. They'll put the spear in his hand. Crack on.
I think he's got a nice little opportunity there, but I think the model as it is excellent, as we said before. But yeah, at the time you mentioned, I thought, I don't remember when he fielded these different weapons. I don't remember him discussing. I know my knowledge is it's too long ago since I revisited that book to even
Yeah,
consider it. So to hear it pointed out, I'm like, yeah, actually, I can fully believe that
and
wasn't quite right.
it's one of those things like some people have the ability to recall all the information they ever read. You know, I live in the Age of Sigmar Warhammer 40k and the Heresy world. I play most other games that Games Workshop produce, but outside of that, I'm also role playing and I'm reading a lot of other
Oh yeah,
books as well and listening to books. I'm actually cutting back on the amount of podcasts I listen to because I do think I overload the information coming into my brain. So I'm like forcing myself to listen to music in the van now, like rather than just forcing random conversations into my
yeah,
head.
yeah.
Um, uh, so years ago, I can still talk about like old law from 25 years ago, which is no longer relevant in some circumstances. But holding everything in, I'm not quite as good as I used to be. I'm getting older as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's the nature of these. I mean, particularly when the depth of lore is what it is now. I
Yes.
mean, it's been going for a long time, but I would argue that we've got considerable more material. So it's the way of these things. It's good. I'm continually astounded at the ability of certain of people to be able to recall some of this stuff. Some of the minutiae is remarkable that they can bring up. A good friend of mine does that all the time with no. He doesn't. He just seems to retain that information. He seems to
Yeah.
drink it in like a sponge. He's oh yeah, well actually, the that particular chapter had that particular variant on that badge for that one. Wow. Okay. Or knowing all the minutiae of characters in all of the Dan Abnett books, you're like, okay, that's not stuff I can
There's
hold.
I heard someone on a sports podcast saying, what was it? You can only follow two sports properly now, like to be fully into two sports,
Hmm.
because there's so much happening in them all that you can't keep up with others. You can still watch the others, but you can't be fully into them. And I was like, I think that's right. When I was young, I was football, cricket, rugby, international rugby was on. I would always watch it. I I saw a memory tweet, a memory message on Facebook, like you did this 13 years ago. I was talking about the tennis, like, and I never watch tennis now. Like even for a big game, like if English guy was in the final of Wimbledon, I probably wouldn't watch it. I used to watch snooker all the time. I used to watch darts,
Hmm.
like countless other sports. Um, and now it's like even when the Olympics is on, I'm like, I must sit down and watch some. Uh, I think time and just having too many other interests that eat your time, like podcasting, um, just drains you a little bit. But hey, it's all fun.
Yeah,
It's
that's always the depth you go into it as well, isn't it? I mean,
yeah,
I play as you do. You and I both play most of the GW games that are out there. I previously when there was a period where GW was taking a slightly different direction, and London in particular seemed to have quite the scene of War Machine and that type of game going on. I had a quick go at some of that, and I just found myself with that in particular, but to some extent recently Games Workshop games. I'm not going to dive in the way and sort of to play them at a certain level. If I wanted to play them for the love of the game itself, rather than all of the other parts around it, the hobby aspect, the narrative
yeah,
aspect, the background. If I was just going in on the game, to be able to really have the knowledge of that, to what the amount you'd have to learn, I couldn't do that for more than one game.
no,
And I
even
would
just
keep it a much lighter level, but I thought maybe two at the most. But it really, I mean, you think of having to learn all of the different interactions, and I found that with War Machine particularly, you almost had to
oh yeah,
memorize. It was the same with I played the card game Netrunner while that was still around,
yeah,
having to basically memorize what every other card in that game could do, and it's the same kind of, you think the same, it's like 40k now or similar. Think of what every army could do with its stratagems, what every unit can do, what your own things can do, what different combos can play. You can't throw yourself into, you can't retain that kind of information across multiple systems unless you are a very unique individual.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so background is the same. I used to know Necromunda background pretty well. The new books I haven't read, Just haven't
Mm.
read any of them. Just time. I've got some sat on my shelf, pick up bits and pieces, just never gets read. But hey, it's all good. I mean, that's partly me procrastinating online a lot, which is a terrible, terrible habit that I cannot break. Um, but hey, it is
It's a
what it is,
hobby
as
in
they say.
itself.
Indeed. Okie dokie. So we did have, I mean, literally the only heresy thing was Malagas got released. 30
Hmm.
quid, currently out of stock. Um, I've seen
Good to
again
see.
comments.
Good to see that he was out of stock because he's popular.
Yeah. Um, yeah.
Probably.
Like, oh, sorry, I'm banging my microphone here. Um, it's one of those things. I saw people say, they grossly underestimated, like how many. Again, like it's going to be a while
Mm.
before we're out of this. Like, Forge World are going to make a load, but they're also looking at the new stuff that they're making, and it's going to take so long for them to catch up. You only have to look at basic lines for other stuff that still aren't back in. Um, yes, it's frustrating when you have to wait. I absolutely, completely understand that, and it would be amazing if everyone who wanted one could go and buy one right now. But they just can't. They just can't at the
Yeah.
moment. Hopefully, as I say, we'll start to, and it will take a while even when they're back to full production because they've got a lot of lines. I dread to think um, how many lines are like out of stock at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy. I
It
mean,
is.
even on their selling fast bit, you've got like Legio Custodes, Contemptor, Achilles, Dreadnoughts, Old Blood Angels, Leviathan, Dreadnoughts out of stock. I know, um, like a lot of the arms are Janisha Krolls out of stock. Blood Angels, Contemptor, Dreadnoughts out of stock. Loads of Titanicus weapons out of stock. You know, they people think that GW do this on purpose. They don't work that way. They think. I also saw the good old claims that the potato camera leaks again had to be GW. I'm like, just no. Like the fact they answer, the very fact that although they haven't done it for this yet, the fact that they answer leaked photos with their own images tells you, like, if they were happy to have those leaked images out for a while, they wouldn't counter that with an
Yeah.
article on Warcom showing
Yeah.
you
For
a
sure.
good image. Just would not do it because that takes time, and essentially time is money in
Yeah.
business. So particularly when they've had to call people in the past to then do things, that puts strain on people and everything else. Um, but yeah, we will talk about that the box in a minute. But have you had a good look round on this Malagast?
I have, and I think it's just. I liked it before, but
Yeah,
I still want to see it. There's still nothing quite like having it in your hand
no,
and really getting to understand it there. And I haven't jumped in yet. I'm waiting. Probably, I'd like to actually grab. I like to grab these sorts of things at events. It kind of is the way
yeah.
I go with these things. So I'm hoping it might be possible to do it
I
at that event.
I know some people don't like tactical rocks for standing on, but they allow for different poses. And in my opinion, they're better than bodies because I can just paint them as rock rather than having to choose a legion, and therefore maybe not. I did hear someone. I can't remember what model they were talking about. It might have been Argottar actually. It's like I've got to choose what legion to paint up with that, and then when I play, if I paint them up as Ultramarines and I play Space Wolves, it's like why is he carrying around a dead Ultramarine?
Yeah, got it.
It doesn't bother me that much, but I can understand why it bothers other people. Um, but I love the leg brace on him, and he's got a brace going up the side as well,
Oh,
holding his
all of it, all the way through to suggesting that there's an injury there for a
yeah
marine character in particular, which is sort of an invulnerable thing, is impressive. I also like the
yeah
way he's. It's a small thing. The way he's holding the icon.
yeah
He's
yeah
he's he's sort rather than that strong. Yeah, I'm almost holding it like a spear, holding it up. It's no, I'm using this like a cane. I'm clinging
yeah
on to this to keep me upright, and I think that's quite cool. The bolter's
yeah.
rather interesting, isn't it?
The battle's cool. It's kind of old school, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
exactly. Yeah.
and then we've got this. It looks like the um, the chest piece has comes out quite far, and then on the back, his backpack's got extra doodads and bits on it, like
Mm.
all to help him do what he needs to do. And a lovely sword on the back as well. With another Eye of Horus there. Yeah, it's a fantastic kit. 30 quid. I don't really know how much the other characters are now, because it's not a character series model.
Is it not?
I don't
No, it's
think. No, it's not,
not.
is it?
Judging by the
Uh,
packaging, good question.
doesn't say character series
Yes, it
on it.
is. Yes, it is.
Is it?
Here on the website, yes, it is.
Oh, yes, it does.
The
Character
grey things.
series.
I thought he
Yeah,
must be at that
yeah,
price.
that's
He
what I
must be.
thought. But it's the first kind of like got a simple base for a character series model. So maybe that. Well, okay. I mean, because I thought he must be, but I couldn't find it. But what we've got then is a. Um, I think there's some. Like they've kept the cost down on it
Mm,
for a reason,
mm.
kind of thing. I'm just gonna have a little look at some other character series. So yeah, Ralderon is 47 quid
Mm.
because he's got the big demon fist and then the base that builds up behind him. Let's look at who else has got a
Older
character
one.
series.
How much is Pollux?
Pollux, yeah, let's look at Pollux.
Bigger base, but
Oh, that's Iron Hands. I've clicked the wrong one. Fists. There we go. Well, Sigismund's 47 quid again, standing on a load of rubble.
one of the biggest bases though.
Yeah. Pollux,
Pollux is 38.
38 quid. So not too bad in comparison. Let's have a little look. I just want to look at the Space Wolves one. Oh, for crying out loud. I hate it when you're clicking on stuff on the Forge Rail one and it moves stuff around and you end up
Oh
clicking
yeah,
on something else as
for
well. It's
sure.
so frustrating. Such a
It's
little
even
thing.
worse. It's even worse on mobile.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Haval Redblade, whose base is big, not like it's not high, just rocks. 47 quid. So
Terminator.
yeah, add a smidge, but then I don't think Malagast is that far off having that extra
No, fair, fair.
resin in him when you look at the stuff. So to have it at 30 quid, I think most people aren't going to be bothered that you don't have the big base and you
No,
save
I
that
agree.
money
I agree.
because a lot of people are selling their big bases anyway.
Yeah, but no, a lot
And
of people don't like them for the practicality of using them in a game.
yeah, well they come out, didn't they?
Yeah, true.
But I think now, particularly with like that's very much. I wonder if there's a kind of, well, if you want to make a better base for him, then there's a myriad ways of doing that now.
Mm,
Like people, you only have to look at people like Mike Fell-Handed casting his own bases to put characters on,
mm.
or 3D printing them, or there's lots of opportunities there.
Or
So
buying 3D printed or 3D designed and 3D printed ones. Yeah.
exactly, so there's a lot of cool stuff that can be done that GW probably don't need to do, and it does add, resin is based basically on how much resin they have as much as anything else in the model. So it will go up. The more resin you put on, the
It
more it's
does.
going to
It does
cost.
look. I mean, him with that other Legion, Sons of Horus Legion Command set. They are going to look. They are starting to look pretty good, aren't they? And the Reaver
Yeah,
attack squad, using them as a veteran squad or similar. Yeah, this is a nice little force.
yeah, there is some really cool stuff. Yeah, that Sons of Forest Legion Command Squad, which is out of stock. Um,
And the Contemptor,
uh,
but
uh,
they'll get there.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just give them time. Um, yeah, so I mean that was, as you said, that was the only bit of heresy we had this month. Well, I say this month, we're a week off recording, so we ended up just finishing off after the 15th last episode. This episode's late as well, but I'm trying to get on it. Yeah, please bear with us. So we'll, it's 7 days out from the next article. So
Mm.
what's going to be next? What are they going to show us next, Howard? I mean, it's so hard to
Well,
tell now, isn't it?
well,
It could be anything, couldn't it?
it feels like it's still, given the things that they revealed in the Games Day thing. I mean, we've still got. It's been quite quiet on releases from GW recently, and now that's because of Age of Sigmar, obviously. Age of Sigmar 3 coming on, that's needed to keep all of that. But even as that has completed, this week's pre-orders are quite quiet as well.
Yep.
It's quite quiet running at the moment, and we've still got products that they were showing, or even systems in some cases, that they've been showing at Warhammer Fest and similar. Could be 3 months out. We've got things like Aeronautica. That's going to be quite a set coming. There's a few other bits that are coming along. you think, yeah, those may well come first. So I would have thought we've still got perhaps a few Forge World models, individual models to come before we start getting a time where we might be hitting
Yeah,
a more significant rush of releases.
but what we've got is Legion Dispatch to
Yes, and I
show us
think what I
what's
mean is
next.
at Legion Dispatch, I think we'll see another Forge World type individual character rather than
Yeah,
them go,
that's what
hey
I'm
guys,
asking. What are we going
yeah,
to see?
I think we'll. Oh, which character?
Yeah, or what
I think
unit?
it'll be a
Like,
character. I don't know. Unit would be interesting.
because we've had the Praetors, so maybe it is. I put it this way: I don't think there's any way to know what the plan is yet from GW because we've
Impossible.
seen
Pure speculation.
two characters from two legions that didn't fight together. Um, uh, aren't they're not renowned. You don't think of word bearers and Sons of Horus fighting together in that
No.
respect. And Argos Hall, bless him, he didn't make it that far through the heresy. And then two praetors for the fists.
Pure speculation. It has to be. I don't think they're going to do any big reveals. I think they'll save that for major events. We've got another reveal show this Saturday, which is not heresy related. I think we'll see either a Legion Praetor, or we will see a Legion specific Leviathan.
That was that was my wonder. Like I'm trying to think of Leviathans. We've got
We haven't got very far with Legion specific Leviathans.
no.
Legion specific Contemptors, I think they're all done
Have we
now.
got all the contemptors? Yeah.
I think so.
Trying to remember.
Ultramarines
I
was
think
always
so.
the one that was a bit
Ultramarines is there.
behind, but it's there. Exactly. That was always the one that seemed to be lagging behind. And that's there.
Yeah.
I think they're all there. But
So yeah,
Legion Leviathans, I think they will want to do one for everyone, probably.
yeah.
And they're away off that.
I think there's going to be a balance between catching up on those things that they want to do and cool new stuff, which I think is only right. Really, you need new, fresh stuff, but you also need to be bringing in the stuff that people are like, oh, we wanted one of these for ages.
But thinking through what's coming, we've seen leaked photos and similar of a potential plastic, well, it's clearly going to be a plastic box set. Maybe it's not a box set, maybe it's a set of releases. Whatever format it takes, there's going to be a sudden rush of an injection, if you like, of enthusiasm and releases.
Yeah.
They won't do that. I would be very surprised, extremely surprised, if they did that through Legion Dispatch. So I suggest it's going to be smaller.
That'll get its own.
Of course, it would need its own major event. It'll be a major release, possibly even an animated trailer, all that kind of. It's going to be fanfare left, right, and centre. It won't be anything about that. Even if they were going to comment on that, they would have done so around the release. So they'd have done so by now. They've not done so. So I think we're going to see. To call it filler releases I feel is incredibly disparaging, and I don't want it to be. I think it will just be more of those individual splash releases. Let's call them that.
Yes.
That's a better way of doing it. And I think the things that fit perfectly for that are Legion Praetors and Leviathans. It could be any kind of character from the series.
Well,
here's Meduson suddenly busts out and comes out of nowhere. Who knows? Could be anything like that. But I mean, I don't know. I wonder if we might fall into a pattern of a Legion specific thing or a sort of more generic thing, and then a named character, and then back to a thing like that. It could go that way. Who knows?
But I need you to tell me. I need a prediction.
Specific thing. All right, let's get in. Start getting a bit more specific.
Go on, just throw it out there.
Okay.
It could be as long as you like.
I'm going Legion specific Leviathan for. Well, I want it to be Imperial Fists, but I'm biased. Space Wolves, Legion specific Leviathan.
Cool. Groovy. Well, the sad thing is, I was leaning towards Legion specific Dreadnought, so that is a shame.
Just take mine. Go for a Praetor.
Yeah. So I'm not going to do that. As you were talking, and just before you said picking up other stuff from Black Library, I was like, oh, an Aenitheel model would
that would
go
be cool.
down very well. But I'm gonna say, let's go at it. This is not going to happen, but I want it to. So I'm asking the universe and in a Noel Edmonds style, and the universe will provide. Um, Jet Bike Sisters.
Oh, he's gone unit. All right. Okay.
Jet Bike Sisters. So that's my. It's not going to be right. It's fine. I don't care. But if it is, boy, am I going to be happy. Yeah, so Jet Bike Sisters. I think they could throw them in and surprise us. Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
actually,
we'll
that would be
find
good.
out. It
That
would
would
be
be good
amazing.
actually, because it would be so out there. I mean, I feel that would have far more impact than a Mechanicum unit coming out of nowhere.
You just get.
Solar Auxilia, something for them.
Yeah, I think they're going to concentrate on, and this is undermining what I've just said. I think they're going to concentrate on the legions.
Yeah, no,
But
but you did say it would be very surprising. That's
I could also imagine, um, I, yeah, I could just wonder. So Forge World have in the past, like the designers are designing all the time, and you'll find they design in their spare time a lot. And we've had occasions where people have just designed stuff in their spare time and it's been released because people were like, "That's cool. Let's fit it in somewhere." That might be difficult at the moment, but the Sisters jet bikes were mentioned um, a while ago back in the Black Book. Like, uh, I wouldn't be surprised if someone's been thinking about making them for a while. Um, but there's a long way from thinking about making them to actually making them to them actually getting on a release slot. So yeah, but hey, I can dream. I can absolutely dream. Just need some more units in the Sisters as well. Bit of variety would
well,
make
that's
them a
why
really cool
that's a
army
good
to play.
call. That's why I like that one. I think that would be quite good. Just chuck it out there. Could you do something? Could you do? I mean, they've got that sort of upgrade kit for the plastic set. There's
Oh,
something
what with
else.
the pistols? They're
Yeah,
terrible. They're just
it's not my
terrible.
favourite kit by a
I
long
bought
shot.
them. Well, I bought them and then I was like, I can't put a unit of them in. I really can't. I mean, yeah, an upgrade kit just so they can have like grenade launchers, so you can actually have
Yeah,
like side bolts. So you can actually make the units that are in the book, which does kind of fit. So that should probably come first. You've got the I can't remember what they're called, but the Seeker squads with the with the curious animal
yeah, something like
cyber
that
animals.
could be quite cool.
Yeah,
I
they
could
could.
see that. I could see that being something, or something that it
Or
elevates
the
them to the
the
what is it, the
okay.
Obsidian Knights or something.
Yeah, although I think that's a unit upgrade, so I think that can just be. I think they'll say that can just be like you paint them slightly differently, or you put
Yeah, you
markings on
could,
them, or
but I'm just
whatever.
thinking it would be
Um,
cooler
it
to have something
would
with
be
like
cool to
an
have
upgrade.
Janisha Krolls, but I mean, you're already talking about a limited a section of people buying it,
Yeah,
and
it's
then
niche,
you've
isn't it? Yeah.
also got to have Janisha Krull in your army, and then select them to do that. But what you could do is you could do an HQ. So they've got an HQ squad
Mm.
of an Excruciatus squad, I think it is, where
Yeah,
so
something
five
along. Yeah.
sisters are an HQ within themselves. So to release a squad that can be your HQ, but has options to be made into other different bits would be not a bad idea. A five sister squad with lots of bits in it,
That's kind of what I'm thinking. It's sort of a use-all kit
because
that you
then
could actually
yeah,
upgrade them. You could just give a greater variety to that plastic
yeah.
kit.
So yeah, you put all the options in for the HQ, but then you make them just that little bit fancier and make sure they
Mm.
all, because all the Excrucia, all the Janisha Kroll that unit uh, is slightly better swordswomen.
Mm.
So like they all just need to be able to have a sword, which you're going to want anyway
Mm.
within the first squad. And then if you can fit in, say, grenade launchers and things like that into the sprue. I mean, it might be that they end up doing them plastic and bringing them into 40k. Could be a waiting for that. Something like that. That would work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but who knows? Who knows? Anyway, we've talked a lot about something we don't know anything about, which is not normally what we do. Magnus has
Raw
come to see us.
speculation and
Magnus
wish
is
listing.
meowing at me. Stay on track.
He knows.
Stay
He
on target.
knows.
He does. Knows us too well. But yeah, we shall see in about a week. So that would be cool.
Fingers
Excellent.
crossed.
Um, should we move on and talk about Mortis?
Definitely. Yeah.
Cool.
It's
So
been long enough now.
It has. We've been aiming to do this, and you've been trying to find time to read it. And I was waiting for the audio to drop so I could listen to it again because you kind of have to for me when doing these things. Do you want to do a general? Okay, so what are your general thoughts on Mortis before we get into it?
I was My expectations for it were high.
Sure.
I'm a big fan of John French's style of writing. It's a much more what I would describe as a much heavier weight type of writing than perhaps some of the others. It's a much
Yeah.
more it's it's got a lot of symbolism involved. I'm mainly thinking him generally as his work with Aram and other things he's done. It's powerful stuff, and you can read a great deal into it. It feels like you could write essays on it. You could think on it about a lot. And so I thought, okay, that's great. And he's dealing with Legio Mortis entering that thing, and with my particular love of Titanicus as it was at the time and still is, I was thinking I am looking forward to this. I think this is gonna be strong, and it absolutely was. It absolutely is that kind of book. However, it wasn't what I expected in the way it sort of unfolded. It was a much more tense, really quite intense build up to it, and I found it quite hard, unlike some of the others, particularly Saturnine, which I mean that's particularly stark that you just ripped through that. It was so almost thrilling. You just wanted to tear through it. This I found initially hard going. The payoff was worth it. John is, I still think, one of the best writers for gravitas. There was moments in the closing acts where there is some gravitas moments that I think he does spectacularly, and I enjoyed it for that almost on its own. But there's other highlights which I'm sure we'll go into. But I found that was the takeaway for me. That's one of my takeaway feeling was overall. It wasn't the all-out action type of thing when there's plenty of it, but it had much more of the symbolism and sort of meaning behind it that perhaps some of the more action-packed things perhaps don't have.
Sure. If the noise has changed from my microphone, that's because I've just wandered out to get a book. Because when I started to look at, okay, what?
It's because I'm boring. I get it. I get it.
Yeah, indeed. What I was thinking about with Mortis, and I was like, okay, so Mortis, what do I think about this book? And I trying to find the page now. Okay, so I was like, right, what threads do we have in Mortis? Okay, and this kind of sums up Mortis for me, really. Cinderman, he's doing some stuff in this book. Oh yeah, spoilers, minor spoilers. We're trying not to do too much. Cinderman has his thread. Can I remember what the White Scar's name now? Shiban?
Yes, Shiban Khan.
Shiban? Yeah, I always get him mixed up with the other one. Shiban Khan has his bit. Kat Shiro has his bit. There's the bits with the Emperor. There's actually bits with Horus, which are different and also the same. You've also got Titans. You've also got Perturabo.
That's significant. Yeah.
And you've got the Perpetuals,
Mm-hmm.
which I didn't actually write down there. Oh yeah, I did there. So you've got it's a decent sized book. You've got a lot going on. I don't think this is. I struggled. Yeah, I didn't. Yeah. With John, you don't flick pages and turn through like you do with, even Gav or Dan. A lot of the time, Dan will write books that you just like flick, flick, flick. And you're going through the pages. John, for me, I have to read at a slower pace
Absolutely.
because there is a lot going on.
I'm not accomplished enough a reader to just consume this in the way, and
Yes.
particularly the way I read, because I can't sit down and say, right, the next 4 hours, the next
Yeah, exactly.
2 hours, I'm reading. I can't do it. I'm grabbing 15 minutes here. When things move to audio, I find that's easier.
And we've said, I've said before on the show that those 15-minute reading slots really affect my reading of a book. The best times are when I can block out some time. It's rare I could do it. I managed to do it with Saturnine. I think I did it with Solar War as well. So John wrote the Solar War. This is his second book in, and the Solar War worked for me with John's style of writing. It really worked. I don't dislike Mortis. but I was losing track of it, even listening to it on audio. And there were bits where I was
That's
kind of
interesting.
phasing out on.
That's
And I
interesting.
think the biggest problem for me is there are 7 or 8 threads in this book,
Mm,
and some of them aren't particularly long, but you know they're all paying into something,
mm,
and I think they all had to be in there, and this is the problem. This is a problem caused by the nature of what they're writing about. You couldn't do any of those threads before, like, because they happen concurrently with other stuff going on. Like, if this was Game of Thrones, in fact, so in the UK, was it book 4 that was split into 2 books?
mm,
It was book 4 was split into 2 books, and in the US, I don't think it was, but they basically went, these half of the story here does not interact with this half of the story here, so we will separate these into 2 books which occur on the same timeline,
mm.
which is one way of dealing with a really heavy book. Now, Mortis was nowhere near as big as that book would be, but there is stuff here. So, Perturabo, the Emperor, Horus, the Titans are all linking together. Well, um, Shaban and Katshiro's linking in with those Titans. Shaban's linking in with Katshiro. Cinderman's linking in with Katshiro as well, and with the Titans, and with the other bits. And then the Perpetuals are in there with other stuff feeding as well. Um, and for me, I just felt there was too much in the book. But I don't think there's a way around that, with the
No,
one
I
possible
agree.
exception is Cinderman and maybe Shaban. They could have been shorts or a novella.
It's funny you should say that because I was thinking there's the amount as you were talking about this. It actually occurs to me that I've almost become more really fascinated with each thing almost individually, and it feels like it almost wants to break off and become its own thing,
Yeah,
become its own little thing to breathe. And then there's some bigger thrusts that are still there. I think it would have been weaker had they done that, and I think for where they are
potentially.
in the series, it had to be what it was, i.e., this sort of not nexus, but this large number of concurrent things. I think
I,
it's maybe in the after when he talks about this is the shift where it shifts from a more traditional physical war
yeah,
into the more otherworldly. It's like now we're shifting into hell now, and I
yes,
thought that came across brilliantly.
and there are problems with making it a novella. Or pulling aspects of this out into a novella. So the smaller parts of Cinderman, um, and what his group are up to, and Katshiro, really. He's in there a number of times,
Mm,
but uh, when you look at Sons of the Selenar, you do not have to read Sons of the Selenar if you're reading the Siege of Terror. You could take it out, and your enjoyment of the Siege and Terror will not be diminished.
it's telling because I haven't. I have it there on the
Okay,
shelf, and I just have happened to have
it
not got round to it,
it
and I haven't had anything spoiled or in other way
sure.
diminished by it.
I mean, it's a cool story. It doesn't occur on Terra. It references Solar War, and stuff happening there, but uh, it stands by itself. Fury of Magnus, you don't have to read as part of the Siege of Terra, with possible one exception of basically what's Magnus up to now. There is that little aspect of it, but it's not. I think these threads are all tying into the main storyline, which
Mm,
you have to
mm.
know for the next 2 books.
The only
Um,
one that would be
three 2 books,
even remotely possible
3 books.
to take out would be, as you say, the Cinderman one. And I think that's actually, I think that would, I don't think you can even take that one out,
No,
actually.
because I think it's going to be more important
Exactly.
than it suggests it is, and they're building up to that. I do wonder if it could have been put into a different book, but then it's timescales again. If it's
Mm,
happening now, how do we know that Warhawk doesn't have a juncture point where we already have to know that Cinderman's done this, and then you get into this thing of how far back do you go with Cinderman's story and all the other people. I'm using Cinderman as the overall aspect for that part of this story.
There is one thread that is another possibility, because as you say, I presume it feels likely that Cinderman aspect, because the only reason even I pull that out is because it had the least interaction with the other threads that were going on.
Yeah.
Not none, but the least, I think. But like you say, I suspect it's got thread into the next books, and the other one that I think would be a possibility would be the Dark Angels.
Yes, and I forgot to mention the Dark Angels
just occurred to me. That just occurred
as
to me
another
about that one.
aspect. I knew there was one I was missing. Who are doing big things, but actually, I suspect that plays a huge part into Warhawk,
and that's why it's the timing,
and therefore it has to be here now, and
Yeah.
also has to be in the main storyline because of its importance. So
Yeah.
I do think so. I liked Mortis. I found it not hard work, but I found it work to read.
Agreed.
And as a result, I'm like, yeah, it was cool, but I don't think any of that is John's fault. And it's a really weird. It took me a
I
while
agree.
to kind of work it out.
I don't think you could criticise the writing in any way, shape, or form.
No,
That's
and
a bit
also,
strong, but I don't think there's something here that I think, well, that was a shame. That's a miss. That's a miss. That. I don't think so at all. I similarly found it hard. I found there was periods where I wasn't like rushing to go and pick up the book as I have with some of the others. It was work, like you say. There was some effort involved, but that's quite rewarding in itself. I think that's a positive, actually. I didn't think there was anything I didn't like.
There's that whole balance of, so at some point they had to write about the Titans attacking the walls, right? And therefore it gets put into this book, and Mortis coming down and doing that is a major factor in the heresy and contributes hugely to decisions made in other places in the book. But Titans killing Titans after 10 pages is Titans killing Titans, and John did some cool stuff, and the War Masters were brought in. The Vortex missile stuff that was going on was kind of funky. We got
Legio
to see,
Sinister.
And the way it was dealt with on the other side as well. The nature of how far, again, an example of the way in which these Chaos forces have fallen, with the initial attack from the Titans, and then finding out actually like the horror of those first lines being, our old friends basically. Before Mortis come down in a, and this is full on. You're almost at 40k level Mortis now. Like, they've embraced, fully embraced what they're about. So there's only so much of that, and he did it well. Like, breaking up the different aspects of the battles. But there's only so much of a knight running around the feet of Titans and new Titans coming up and blowing, and shields blowing out and things like that. Before I'm just on a personal, some people will love the fact that happened on a personal level. I'm like, I'm kind of done with Titans. I just need to know who wins now, and we know who wins. So
that's what I thought. I thought he pulled back from doing too much of that. Particularly, I mean, for example, you could argue that the final conflict, if you like, the final confrontation, the line in the sand moment, almost didn't happen. It's almost not covered. It's done from a distance.
Absolutely, people. I've seen that complaint online, and I absolutely understand and sort of agree in a way. Where I agree that it happened quickly and it happened at a distance, and it leaves a lot there.
I think that was a good choice.
I don't know if that's a good or a bad idea overall. I
on balance, I think it is a good idea given the way he did it.
And both those things can be true. It can be not have done, and it being absolutely a good choice.
For me, it was the right choice. But I could entirely understand someone thinking it not.
Yeah. So that the thing that the books now, I have seen people say, oh, there weren't enough Titans in it for a book called Mortis, and I'm like, well, Mortis covers a lot of things, but also, thank God there weren't that much more Titans in it,
Mm.
because it would have become a drag. I think, like, no one wants to hear Arnold Rimmer tell how he won a game of Monopoly, like, it's terrible. What you managed to do here, I tell you where I'll link it to. If anyone's read the Beast Arises series,
Mm.
as you read the
Oh
whole
yeah, goodness
series,
me.
the third time they go to where they're going to fight, and I'm like, we've done this fight twice before,
Mm.
like, and the first two times was almost exactly the same, and I was like, this is dull, and it never got dull. It was just, I've done with Titans now.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's all. If we look over, let's do the Dark Angels. Uh, it's an interesting one because obviously, again, there's lots of this. So the Dark Angels and Cinderman and Shaban and Katshiro is all building to something,
mm.
and the Perpetuals. Like, there was cool stuff that happened, but it's all as part of a journey. Like, nothing, there were some really good, like, reveals within the Perpetual storyline, but it's only relevant to what they're going to do.
Mm.
Whereas some of the aspects, like the Mortis stuff, is relevant to that point.
Yes.
In the current, I thought. So, like the Katshiro, yeah, cool. What was I on? What was I talking about? Cinderman. Um, they're setting something really interesting up there. Uh,
Yeah.
what you also see from that is like how the Imperium, even under the Emperor, was never fully one working machine, and we knew that anyway. But, like, just how many different cogs
Mm.
and bits
Mm.
and pieces were in there um, is
Yeah,
really
I thought that was
interesting.
quite, and there was some nice little glimpses here into some of that. I mean, obviously the characters that Cinderman's moving around with, particularly the individual they're trying to liberate from the prison. There's some very interesting characters there and some little insights into what they're about and some reflections. And Perpetual's the same, actually. The whole Perpetual sequence, that I thought started to get much closer to where that's going,
Yeah, I
or at least setting that up. Yeah.
yeah, the the abstract nature of all that sometimes took me a while to kind of get my head
Yeah,
around what
it's
was
hard.
going on.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
but
For me,
but
anyway.
again, we're dealing with. So what John's had to do here is, talk about, describe Titans fighting Titans, but also, like, Fulgrim got up and left in the last fight,
Mm.
and he's showing you now, like, we knew that the Emperor's children went and had fun on Terra whilst the main fight was going on.
Mm.
Well, this is the kind of thing they've been doing. So we
Mm.
get to see that aspect of what's going on as well, which is good, which is kind of important to show. Uh, I was completely wrong with Saturnine. This is Ol Pearson.
Mm.
And Mike was right with Saturnine, bless him. We got Ol here. I mean, the journey that Ol's gone on, screw it, let's talk about it. Like, the fact that Ol is the original War Master, has been
Yeah.
around with the Emperor since, Greek myth time, is,
And to bring that out, I thought that was huge. To bring
yeah,
that, and as you say, it was a point I was fairly certain that wasn't old person
no,
in
yeah, and
Saturday.
yeah,
I
I
thought
think,
that was it. I could see where the interpretation was, and I
I
liked that
think,
they did it,
I
and
think
they give
Dan
you
got
those
me.
multiple directions. Yeah,
I think
good.
I think Dan hung that out there, and I was kind of hoping, not necessarily hoping, but I loved the fact that if that was all,
You loved that it could be. Yeah.
that it could
Mm.
be, yeah, and I think almost falling in love with that in itself. Um,
I
but
think that's
now we've
great. I
got,
agree with you. I think that's great, but I think this was thrilling in a different way.
but also it opens things up so much. It's like we've been here before. Everything's cyclical. The emperor
Yeah,
had a war master, and Ol stood against the emperor before and said
yeah,
no. Like, and now he's doing it again. But also, when you then think about all that comes with for Ol, then he's a very different person, um, even than from the perpetual we knew about. And like, okay, you kind of understand why he was hiding out in the 500 worlds and just like, I'm retired from all this rubbish. Like,
yeah,
don't
yeah,
need it anymore. Um, and then the whole enuncia aspect of it,
yeah.
which again, like, all of a sudden now I'm thinking of the vengeful spirit, and I'm like, well, maybe Ol was there. Maybe Ol is that man who's there. And now John knows enuncia as well. And there
But it
becomes
starts to potentially change how you. I mean, it's obvious how you might
perceptions, yeah.
predict how that's going to go.
Yeah. I mean, but
But
more
suddenly,
importantly,
that character with that history and that previous experience, if you like, that character turning up, what effect is that going to have on the Emperor?
yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
You think that's
All that.
not going to go
And
the way one expects?
no, and again, this could be a little red herring,
Oh,
but
entirely,
what
yeah.
but what it sets up is the Emperor knows enuncia.
Oh, yes.
So when we get to that point, we know, like, well, the old story is, the Emperor gives Horus a chance. Horus mortally wounds him. At that point, the Emperor knows he has to obliterate Horus.
Mm,
Well, he's now got a weapon beyond the weapons he already had. Like,
mm,
um, so it all feeds into that. But again, like, is it that simple? Is any
yeah.
of this that simple? And then on top of all that, we've got the group around Ol, which could prove interesting as well. And then they meet a blind seer woman and Alfarius in bunny ears.
Yes. Yes.
Um, so we've got what many believe to be Cyrene
Yeah.
reborn, who, what's the name of the 40k, the one that visits Abaddon, the Black Templar, the witch?
Oh, goodness me.
I cannot remember her name for the life
Oh,
of me,
that's
but people
annoying.
believe that was Cyrene
Yeah.
there, and this could all be there. And then you're wondering, well, what's the purpose behind this? Like, is everything that's coming out of this straightforwards, or is
Mm,
there triple games being played? And then this Alfarius character, is it Omegon? Is it Alfarius? Which one died?
yeah.
Because I still believe one died, or is it
Yeah, I think
someone
so.
else?
Yeah.
So, and then what's their goal? Like, there's nothing straightforward with what they're up to,
No. No,
which
absolutely
I
not. And you think
really like.
that group that has then been assembled starts to become really quite compelling with the options that they've got and what they might be up to and how they might interact with it all because of how significant these were already significant. You knew they were significant characters.
Yeah,
They've elevated that substantially.
yeah, yeah. And even with even if in Saturnine that was all, I was thinking it wouldn't be the end anyway.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, you've got a real interesting group there now, and I know some people don't like the whole perpetual aspect. Cool. I mean, it's there, so you
Mm.
just have to like not read it or just put up with it, really. But there's some cool stuff. There's what they've done is they've expanded the Emperor's lore without really giving us too much more on him as well, which which is cool because you don't want too many answers. In fact, it just asks more questions, really. But
I do like, I mean, it's a minor thing really, but certainly in the scope of this book, but I do like the way they they are able to do, John in specifically is able to do the interactions between the Emperor and Horus on that
yeah,
astral plane kind of aspect. I think that adds such a almost a sense of threat to it somehow, and but also power. He does that fantastically well.
but yeah, and also showing the insecurities of Horus as well,
Yeah.
and the like. He can't work out why the Emperor's not fighting back,
Mm.
or or why he's doing those little things he's doing. He's like, and he feels so secure, but also, yeah, there's just something not quite right. within it, and it's a good way to understand a very metaphysical war that's going on,
Yeah,
but to also show you the whole game state, like without having to pull back and tell you what's going on at each wall. It's like the Imperium at the moment is on its knees,
yeah.
um, and we need, they need Gilliman and the Lion to make it back, and maybe they think Russ is coming back as well. It's all a bit fuzzy on where they stand with that one at the moment. But we were talking about the Dark Angels, and that's you hear it's when Dawn's talking to them at the end to Corswain. Like the Dark Angels are here. They've relit the Astronomicon. Like that was the bit of hope we needed.
Mm.
How many have you bought? Oh no, it's only 10,000. Before we started fighting, there were 10,000. It's like, oh, that's not what we need.
And I liked the crushing. Like, oh, that's
Yeah,
that's not what we were talking about here.
yeah,
We
yeah.
needed it to be all of you.
And
And you think, that's 10,000 Space Marines, but
yeah.
no,
Oh, it's
that's
nothing.
that's
It's
that's a
absolutely
that's a
nothing.
drop in the ocean.
And this is like the darkness has fallen over Terror. Like at that point, Dawn's sitting there thinking, well, if they're not coming. He's still gonna fight. He's Dawn, but there's that element of well,
There was a point earlier. I can't remember if it's earlier in this book. I'm pretty sure it is. I think it's in one of the opening sequences where Dawn reveals to some of the other seniors that someone is coming and that he's got word that someone's closer than they think they are. And there's a sense of, oh my goodness, there. And it's implied that because it's done to a very closed group, that's true. That's not just him saying that to keep morale up.
yeah,
It was a sense of he did know something. You wonder if he'd got word in some way. I wonder if that's what he'd got word of. And then he was genuinely let down by
yeah,
that. By them, he thought someone has foreseen that the Dark Angels are coming. There's a bow wave in the Imperium or something, and then sure enough, they turn up, and he's like, that's not what we needed. And the scene that follows that, because it's also at the point where Mortis have got through, and I think that the call that goes out is one of the best parts of the book.
Yep, we're at the dark just before the dawn,
Yeah.
kind of thing. We've still got a little bit of time to go, but we're waiting for Gandalf
Or
to come
the
flying
dark,
over
the dark just before the midnight. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
it's
Yeah,
it's actually looking like it's about to get very dark. But
and then within all that, like there are Lutherites within that group,
yes,
um, but and Lutherites who haven't really, and maybe this is where they allow that kind of questionable loyalty for Dark Angels to exist, is within a group like this, because they've done stuff which is going to aid the Imperium. Uh, and people are like, why did you let him do that? Like, why didn't you just, why have we helped? But
yes.
that doesn't mean they're fighting for chaos either. So
I almost feel like there should be more of. There should be more. I feel like I would enjoy reading about that with more legions. I think you've touched on this before about there are divided elements in all of the legions, and you tend to see people theming armies around loyalist version of traditional traitors. Traitor
yeah,
legios. I've done my loyalist Emperor's Children. I've done my loyalist Iron Warriors. You rarely see people. I've done my traitor Blood Angels.
yeah,
I've done my traitor Imperial Fists. Dark Angels have that. If there
yes,
was, there's elements in there that are as
them and the
close
White
to a
Scars.
black shield. Yes, true. But you still don't tend to see it with the White Scars
No,
as a force that people kind of get behind. You do perhaps with the Dark Angels, though actually I've never seen it, but you could argue you do with, say, people particularly perhaps go down that route with Fallen in 40k more than they do in 30k. But it's not something you read about a great deal either. Like you say, it's White
no,
Scars and Dark Angels, and that's it. And Dark Angels aren't traitors; they are, well, okay,
successionists.
indeed.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's an interesting story. I mean, we got Corswain there now. I just want to see Corswain do more Corswain stuff because he is baller. He is absolutely baller. But that's going to be an interesting spark moving forwards on there. I wonder if they'd always planned to use the Imperator Somnium. Is
Mm.
that what it's called? The
Yes,
Emperor's flagship?
yes.
I got it right.
Spot on. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I wonder if there was what ships have we got still in? Oh, that's got to be dead before 40k. Let's use that
Yeah.
one now. But it was a beautiful piece of kind of storytelling in what was going on, and made more interesting by the fact that they were less prepared for it because of the Iron Warriors leaving at
Yes,
the time.
and I like the fact that it quite explicitly said that as well. It was like,
Yeah,
had this happened 24 hours earlier, this might have gone differently.
yeah,
Because it
might.
happened at this particular time,
Yeah,
it was particularly wounding. And like, awesome.
indeed, indeed. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, uh, I love the Dark Angel stuff. I loved them coming in like that, and kind of making that decisive thing,
Mm,
and having an active part as well, because that's always the complaint, isn't it? That the Dark Angels don't do anything in the Heresy, because Caliban, the whole Caliban thing happens post Heresy,
mm.
really. That they deal with that, so they got some action, which is good. Horus appears in it a bit. Um, Mostly in relation to Perturabo. What I did like was at one point he was described as the War Master of mankind,
Mm,
even as they're describing him being so far removed from what he was as a Primarch.
mm.
Like, and not only just that, but the way he was waging war, like, was such an ironic title that he's then taken on, where you then see him, berating the emperor for the way he's treated mankind and lied to them and used them. And then, while in the physical world, uh, they're lauding him up with this title. And what is he doing? He's just like smashing stuff into other stuff with demonic forces, with like unleashing the absolute terror that he has left in his arsenal to try and win. As
Yes,
a sweet
I
irony.
like the idea of that. Well, yeah, I still like the idea of that being more truthful. I like the
Yeah,
argument that they're saying, yeah, but that's fine because
because
that
I'm
exists.
honest about it. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly,
It's just
exactly.
that
I quite
whole
like that as a particular as a counterpoint to what the emperor is.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just so terrible that I can justify it. I can justify what I'm doing. Um,
Yeah, I
but
can
yeah,
justify this truly
heinous.
heinous act. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. But because it's honest.
because you lied.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this is
Spot
your
on.
fault. Remember, as I'm doing terrible things to
Yeah,
billions of people, this is your fault because you
yeah,
lied once.
yeah.
Um, or a couple of times. But yeah, but my favorite aspect of the whole book was Perturabo. So
Yes,
John,
yes. You've mentioned this. Yes, I remember.
yeah, so John made me want to collect Iron Warriors with Angel Exterminatus. No, that was Graham,
Oh,
wasn't it?
really?
Angel So sorry, Graham in
Crimson
Angel
Fists.
Exterminatus. No, John in Talon. So
Oh, really? Oh,
Angel
Crimson Fist did it for
Exterminatus
me.
and Talon made
Mm,
me want to collect Iron Warriors because of Perturabo,
yeah.
because he was the honourable warrior. He had flaws, he always had flaws,
Actually, you're right. Talon
but
was good, wasn't it?
but
Yeah.
he was honourable. He had a way of doing things. He was vulnerable in each of them,
Mm,
and particularly in, was it Angel Exterminatus, it was, I think it was basically the line of, I've broken my promise once. I've torn my loyalty away from the Emperor once. Um, and now I'm with Horus and he's no better.
mm,
But I can't bring myself to tear my loyalty from him again. I won't
mm,
break my oath twice. I shouldn't have done it once. It's definitely not going to happen twice.
mm,
And then in Talon, it's he spends an age looking for this weapon that's going to help them in the war, and he finds out what the weapon is, and he just says, "No, put that back.
mm.
I'm not
Yeah.
using it." And I'm like, big up, maximum respect to 30k Perturabo, in that respect, because 40k to Perturabo, he goes on a journey post heresy. Let's just say that. And then I read his Primarch's novel, and yeah, Perturabo's an utter beep, and doesn't deserve any sympathy whatsoever at all, and I'm never going to buy him. And then I read this. So Perturabo's doing his thing. We've seen him doing it in Saturnine. He is in charge. We're getting to a point now where control is becoming an issue just because of how grand the war is and how bitty and the lack of information coming back. But he's there. He's still in charge, and he knows he's at that point where it's a matter of time. And Horus turns around to him and says, "You're going to launch Mortis now." And he's like, "No, that's not
Yeah.
how it works. I've got this. Just like I will grind him down, and it's just literally a matter of time, and I will win this fair and square."
I'm doing it my way, and I'm doing it
Yeah, I'm doing
the
it the
way
way
I intended. Yeah.
you've
Doing it the
employed me
Legion
to do
way.
it. Yeah, you've employed me to do this, knowing what I'll do. So let me do it.
Mm.
And then Horus, puts his foot down and says, "No, you'll come out of charge of that, and I'm putting Mortarion in charge." And
I'm
he's
also
like,
really pleased that they had that confrontation. They had that interaction.
"Yeah,
Because to think of Saturnine and the Saturnine Gambit going unanswered, or the idea that Horus sort of just went, well, yeah, okay, whatever, that happened, but I'm busy over here and in the warp, would have just rung weak somehow.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I felt
absolutely.
he had to call Perturaba to account in some way.
Yeah, yeah." And I don't even. And it's a weird thing because I don't think it mattered that much to Horus, but it was the
But it
it was the
had to be
reason.
addressed. It
Yeah,
had to be addressed.
It became the reason that he could do other stuff.
Yeah.
And so Mortarion, what's really interesting is Mortarion really has been Horus's right hand man through this whole thing. He's Mr. Reliable for Horus. He's
Yes.
done everything he has to do, and he's willingly kind of done it at every step. And you feel Perturaba is just like he's just seething with it. Like Mortarion's going in with his cursed legion who've been weak. Like they've given in to these horrible warp power that Perturabo is going to have nothing to do with ever.
Even worse than that, he's someone who was one of the most actively anti-Psycho specifically.
Yeah, as well. Yeah,
and
so
yet the hypocrisy is higher.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I can imagine Perturabo meeting Mortarion at some point and just shaking his head at him, like looking down at him. But Perturabo gets on with that. Like he knuckles down. He's not happy, but again, he's not going to break his oath a second time. And then Mortis are ordered, and Perturabo's like, "No, that not happening. That is definitely not happening. You want me to fight this Legion war? You bring that down. That's not the deal we had." And with Horus forcing the thing, and that leads to Perturabo being able to say, "Cool, if you want to do it that way, then our deal's off." Like, and you can tell he feels justified in saying, "Well, I'm not breaking a promise now, because you're not doing what we agreed, so I'm going." And
I didn't recall that it was the use of Mortis specifically.
Well, it was the demon engines. He knew what was coming.
It's the demon part, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
but Mortis is demons. It was the foul warp energies that were being used there. Yeah, and it's a bit simplistic to say Mortis, but it was the unleashing of all that Perturabo hates and detests. And this is where Perturabo is amazing, because he's like, "No, that's me done." And his people are like, "What?"
I didn't expect it. It really surprised me.
No, it did surprise me. I was trying to remember what I knew of the lore and whether I knew he went off or not, and I cannot remember for the life of me.
It's never something that's registered with me
No,
as part of the established lore of this.
No, it was always the Night Lords the Night Lords were a bit broken.
But it wasn't quite clear how many of them were there in the first place.
Exactly. The Thousand Sons were there, but now we know that they're not really there in full form. And then the Emperor's Children ran off and did their other things. But what it does do is it reduces that kind of, oh well, Horus should really have taken Terra, because actually, chaos eating itself. Magnus is worried about other stuff. Let's say Fulgrim's bored and worried about other stuff. Let's say the Night Lords are are just petty and out for their own little things, and then you finally peed Perturabo off to the point where he's just like, "Cool, I can't work for you anymore.
My my
I'm downing
my
tools and go."
legion are not. Also, again,
Yeah,
interesting. As someone who has been traditionally not wasteful, but very happy to pay whatever price is necessary with his own legion. Yeah, they're a tool. Why wouldn't I? For someone then to say, "I won't waste them like this. I will not see my legion crushed for this, for this reason.
yeah.
Therefore, we're off."
But
That's a
but
big move.
in quotes, in honest warfare, he will pay the prices,
Exactly.
but not
Yeah.
for this. Like that's his
Exactly.
line in
I
the
will
sand.
not for this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's absolutely beautiful that he then just goes, "I'm off." Like screw
Yeah.
you, because we've all been there at work at one point where you're like, and I remember being at the fire station, and it wasn't a boss or anything, but I was trying to do something. And I always struggle with that one thing. It was just one of those little things, when you get something in your head that you never quite you have to think about. So it takes longer than it should. And someone walked over me and was like, "Do this," and I'm like, "No, I know the way I do it. I just need to like we're training, so this is the whole point for me to get this into my head." And he was like, "No, just do it this way. Just do it this way." And I'm like, "No, I do it this way." And he says, and I just dropped the stuff that I was doing and went, "If you want to do it that way, do it yourself," and
Mm,
walked off. And it was just that moment of, look, I've got everything under control. It might take slightly longer than what you want, but it's fine. And yeah, and then he just leaves,
yeah.
which I really now want to see what they write about Perturabo in 34K and and the others,
It's just
because
such a big deal. Well, it's that sort of Talon of Horus point, the timeline, isn't it? And you sort of
yeah,
all the different the Legion War
because
basically, and that takes place in the Eye.
what's Abaddon going to think of him?
Well, yeah,
Like,
yeah,
what are his brothers going to think? And especially when we know that at some point Perturabo gives in and becomes a demon prince.
yeah.
Like, I would love to see that story where he gets corrupted to that point.
Well, and
Because that
similarly,
was
there's the Iron Cage.
and the Iron Cage, yeah, and all that. But just even from a chaos on chaos viewpoint, like for
That's
him
probably
to
the more
meet,
interesting, yeah, in this respect.
yeah,
Yeah,
the Iron Cage is the Iron Cage and cool,
but I
and I
just think
kind of don't want too
it's
much of it.
no, I know what you mean, but
But
what I mean is it becomes for Perturabo to give up the chance to humble Dawn.
yeah,
It adds an even greater
yeah, absolutely, yeah,
emphasis on what the Iron Cage is. That it's about. It carries on that kind of thing. But you're right. There's something else to be explored
yeah,
about
and
his
the Iron
relationships with the
Cage,
others.
yeah, you're right in that the Iron Cage takes on more importance now,
Yes.
and you can almost imagine him planning it as his ship's flying away from
Yeah.
Terra.
He's like,
Right,
I may
and
have
he
had to
plans it.
leave here for other reasons, but
I
I'm
can't
still
remember
going to
what
have my
date the
moment.
Iron Cage happens, um, but but the more
That's a good
interesting
point.
story um, is kind of how he interacts with his brothers and Abaddon and people like that who are going to look at him and they're going to say, "You abandoned us," like, and he's he's going to have that argument.
We lost because of
Uh,
you. Mm.
yeah. Um, in the early 31st millennium.
Yeah, I
So,
thought it was quick.
so it's a year,
I thought
yeah.
it was
So it's
scouring.
1,000 years.
Scouring era is what I thought. Because it's
Yeah.
that, isn't it? That contributes to the Imperial Fists considering or even adopting the
Codex.
Codex. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because up to that point he's like, no, I'm not having
No,
that, and then he's like,
not
oh,
having
actually, we've been gutted.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
all rather interesting, isn't it? It changes some things, but I thought that was one of the bigger surprises of the book.
I thought it was fantastic. It was such a lovely little set piece within the book,
Yes,
which I wonder if other people have read and kind of gone, huh? But for me, it fitted perfectly.
it's
It was
because
like,
it's quite a jarring surprise that they've withdrawn.
yeah,
You think, okay, that changes the board quite a bit, and it's a move of significance that you wouldn't perhaps have been familiar with.
no, but it all works out. It all works out in context of um, what comes after it in Perturabo's character and the siege itself, like that
Yeah,
reducing of of the amount of bad guys there, because it's like the old law where 9 legions came in force and attacked Terra. Like, how does Terra survive that? And we're seeing now how Terra survives that over such a period of time. So we're left with the Death Guard, the Sons of Horus, like in full force there.
World Eaters.
World Eaters. My mind's going blank. Yeah, because Night Lords are broken.
Actually, that doesn't leave a great many.
No, Night Lords are broken. Thousand Suns are
Alpha Legion
concentrating
aren't
on
there
other
in force.
stuff. No, Alpha Legion are doing their thing. The Emperor's children have gone off elsewhere. The Iron Warriors have now left. That's 5. There's only 4 legions left. Right? So we've got Sons of Horus,
Death Guard, Sons of Horus,
Death Guard. Oh, my mind's gone blank. I can't.
World
think
Eaters. Who's the 4th
World
one?
Eaters, and the Word Bearers, who have
Again,
lost
they're
their
not there
major.
in force. There's only a portion of them there.
Lost their major command as well. So yeah, and maybe this is where Warhawk with Warhawk we're going to see World Eaters, obviously, and they've not been. They've been fighting, but there's been a lot of slaughtering going on with them. But we're going to see those legions then have to push forwards and more demonic stuff, I'm assuming.
It does make it does. It is interesting. It still puts into perspective that 10,000 Dark Angels turning up is still considered such an insignificant force.
Well, yeah. They've got all the Titan Legios, they've got all the Mechanicum forces, they've got
Imperial Army. Yeah, there's a lot
all
there.
the Imperial Army. There's huge amounts there, and those legions have also been preparing for this war. So, the
legions are down.
Sons of Horus
have taken like 90% casualties at this point, I think. Rather at the end of the heresy, they're at like 90% casualties. You've gone from 100,000, 150,000 strong forces down to 10,000.
But they started at 150,000, but they've grown bigger at the start of the war as well.
True.
For the legions that knew they were going to be in a fight. So Sons of Horus and the Word Bearers built up.
There's that point in Solar War, isn't there, where they say that like we've hurried through a whole bunch of recruits here just to swell the ranks.
And when you're looking at it again, you've got the Blood Angels in force, the Imperial Fists in force, and the White Scars, who were split quite heavily, but in a decent force. So you're looking at 3 legions defending as well, and other bits and pieces, obviously. So yeah, it's an interesting scape, but again, it's showing chaos and the nature of it, the problems it has in fighting itself. Because again, as we say, we've got we still don't know what's happening if we go back to those perpetuals, like Cyrene and Alfarius. Like, what's their game? Is their game to extend the war? Is there something else going on, or are they just trying to get into a position to affect something else later on?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, it's set up some very interesting pieces.
And who's the Dark Angel? That's the unnamed Dark Angel.
Which the one in the Lutherite one? Yeah, quite.
I mean, the obvious lead-in is to it being Cypher, particularly with his links to Terra.
Yeah.
It would be really interesting to see kind of where that goes. Assuming that Cypher is the same Cypher we know now, or maybe information's part.
Because there's no traditional lore that suggests Cypher was on Caliban when that goes wrong. Or is that?
So I haven't read the Dark Angels books, but someone told me about the ending Gav's Dark Angels books. So spoiler warning for the next 2 minutes on those. Cypher allows himself to be captured and is talking to a Grandmaster, talking about all these secrets that Cypher shouldn't know, something like that, and basically says you have to destroy Caliban. They do some time travel-y weirdness, and some Dark Angels actually do it from space, but Cypher's with them in a weird.
Oh wow!
But as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, okay, it's a time thing. All right.
Yeah, so I could be wrong on that.
I've got a feeling. Having said that, I think in the Luther book. Have you read that?
Yeah, trying to
In the
remember.
Luther book, I think there's a point where Luther is it's at a point where the heresy is happening. I
Yeah,
think the siege is possibly even happening. Maybe there's a meeting going on,
yeah,
and it's Luther, Astalan, a couple of others, and Cypher is there, I think.
yeah.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. We're speculating. I can't
There's a
remember the
lot of space
specifics.
there, and the
There
beauty of
is, yeah,
Cypher is they leave a lot of it
there is
out there and stuff. But yeah,
a lot going on in
Mortis,
the book. A hell of a lot going
a
on.
hell of a
A
lot,
lot of
and we've
threads. Yeah,
talked for an hour or so, and not dive too deep into any specific part of it, beyond the
no,
little bits and pieces. Like, what is Basilio Foe going to do? Like,
love that character. Love that character.
from the moment he appeared in the shorts, he was great.
Yeah,
The growth of the Imperial Creed. So that that's all kind of cool background stuff, which I'm sure will have some impact, but there's very much aspects of that leading to 40k, building those bridges to 40k as well. So
I quite enjoy how on the nose, how obviously those writing it know how it's perceived. So I like that even the characters are coming in. Are you? You see them in there turning around saying, "Well, are you asking me to whip up a load of faith to fight
yeah,
demons?" And you're like, as a reader, you're thinking, I thought that was just implied that they were going to do that. Okay, so the fact that you are self-aware enough that you think that's what's going to happen suggests it's going to be more complex than that. Great. I love the things that they do like that. I think that's really fun.
yeah. There's also there's a balance there of making sure people understand what's happening.
Hmm.
I'm sure there's an aspect of that. But
Yeah, a little bit of exposition in there, isn't there? Yeah, yeah.
But it's all good. All good. Anything more you want to add on?
Well, there's more we could, but no, I think I'm just holding out for Warhawk now.
Which is out this month.
Is it?
I couldn't remember if I'd read it somewhere or not, but I definitely had a staff member say to me, "Oh, by the way, Warhawk's out this month." I suspect it's the last pre-order of the month. So whether it's out this month or whether it's on pre-order this month, so I will be joining that queue.
Yeah, quite. Brace yourself, everyone.
Yeah, but it's all good. It's all good. Okay, then we'll leave that there. Thank you.
Looking forward to it.
Speak to you later. Well, thank you for making it to the end of another episode of The Imperial Truth. We're going to keep it shorter on this one, just talking about Mortis. We mentioned it earlier. I mentioned it before. It seemed to be in a little bit of a holding pattern, as it were, with stuff going on there, hoping for a good Legion dispatch to come this month, which hasn't appeared yet, and hoping for the show to get back onto a bit of a better schedule. But as I said, it's a bit awkward at the moment with everything being a bit up in the air. But I've got the Durham event, the Company of Legends event, happening for Edge of Empire, happening at the start of September. So I will be heading up to that. Next episode, I might run over kind of the list I'm thinking of taking. Just need to work out exactly how I'm doing it. But one thing I'm considering doing is having a little look at events and seeing what kind of list I would take if money were no object, that kind of thing, something that maybe fits in with the dynamic of the event, but also maybe just looking at events that I'm going to and trying to work out kind of what kind of armies I've got, how I'm looking at taking them, that kind of thing, and maybe with some input from some other people over time as well, as something new to do. So let me know your thoughts on that. Feedback on if you know the Company of Legends, you can find the event information via the Edge of Empire Facebook page. I think they've got an events page for it as well. And if you've got any questions or things you think might be relevant, then please feel free to throw them up there. I've got a bit more painting to do, but hopefully it should be done in plenty of time. One thing I have got to do is go and buy some metal to put in the bottom of I need a sheet of steel to put in the bottom of my carry case so I can magnetise to it. A nice bit of metal in there and some heavy magnets which are going to be securely affixed to the base of some quite heavy models. But we'll cover that, and then I say that's start of September, so we'll cover that on the following show from there as well. But there are lots of events coming out at the moment, which is good to see. I think there's about 3 or 4 events that I want to go at that are on that same weekend, which everyone's just trying to get on with catching up from where we were, 18 months ago or so. For me, it's over 20 months since I was at an event, so by the time I'm at Company of Legends, it'll be best part of 22 months, almost 2 years. So that'll be good to go and see the chaps as well, because a lot of them again I won't have seen for 22 months or indeed 2 years. For that, a bit of a different mix of names as well compared to what I'm the people I normally meet at these kind of events. But that's cool. If you've got feedback for the show, please feel free to email greg@theimperialtruth.com or send me a message on the socials. All the links in the show notes. We do have a Patreon if you want to support us there. Lots of other stuff going on as well. As I say, we're building up. It feels like there's this build-up coming now. Lots more people talking about what's going on. Lots of people asking me questions. I know no more than the next man. Are these rumours true? Everything, and all I can say is they fit. If you go back to the show where we talked about what potentially would happen with a new, or where the state of heresy was, then I think a lot of what's being shown fits in with kind of what we talked about there. It all makes sense to some level. So exciting times. I think it might be a little bit too late for my real close group of gamer friends, but hoping that some other people around the local area might pick it up and have a few more people to play and put it amongst the many, many other game systems that I already try and play and have enough time for. But hey, that's the life of a gamer, right? It's all good fun. But I think we'll leave it there, short and sweet, and we'll look forward to next episode, which I say hopefully I'm going to get that turnaround a little bit quicker. Anyway, until next time, you have been listening to The Imperial Truth.